All right, so I want to ask you guys a question. Does anyone remember what it was like to take your first steps? Yeah, no. Well, of course we don't remember that. Of course not. But I'm sure all of us have experienced watching a small child or a young toddler start to take their first steps. It's kind of a funny thing to see. They wobble around, they stomp a little bit, they go all over the place, but then inevitably they fall. They fall face first. They fall splat right in the middle of the room. And all of us adults watching are a little bit like, oh my gosh, they're going to start crying. They're going to let us know that they are in pain and hurt and scared. But more often than not, these young children never cry, they never hesitate, but they simply stand back up. They stand back up. And I want you to think about that for a second. Hold on to that for a minute, because I want to take a second to just talk and introduce myself. I know you see me up here all the time, but a lot of you probably don't know me personally. They're going to put up on the screen some of the most important people of my life. I would literally not be here. I wouldn't be the woman I am today without any of these people, and I am so thankful for the ones who are on the screen and who are not. I am 22. I'm about to graduate. I'm so excited for that. I'm from Southern California, but for the first 11 years of my life, I lived in the Bay Area, and so I always say that I have foots in both NorCal and SoCal, but not when it comes to baseball. Giants fan through and through, and it's rough living in Dodger territory when you're a Giants fan. I'm a huge extrovert. I love coffee. I love going to the beach. I love being around my people, and what I love most in the world is doing what I'm doing right now. I love preaching. I love teaching. I love communicating, and I'm so excited to have the opportunity to do this with you this morning. Okay, so have you been thinking about what it's like for a young child to fall? It's pretty funny, right? But then everyone, for the most part, who's not their parents, get really freaked out. We're like, oh my gosh, they're going to start crying. Oh my gosh, they hurt themselves. Oh my gosh, they broke one of their tiny little bones. But most of the time they didn't. They're really resilient. They stand right back up. And I was thinking, when do we grow out of this sense of fearlessness? When do we grow out of being able to fall face first in front of a room full of people and just stand back up and walk and continue going like nothing happened? And I think the answer to that is when we learn that falling hurts. Life teaches us that falling hurts. Oh, I stubbed my toe on that corner of the bed. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to avoid that. Oh, I opened up to this person and they betrayed my trust. Not going to do that again. I'm going to avoid that. Oh, I failed in a really big way in front of a lot of important people, and I didn't mean to do that. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to avoid that. These Christians say that God has good plans for me, and nothing in my life is going according to plan or is good. Not going to do that again. I'm going to avoid that. See, another thing about me is that I hate not being in control. I really hate it. I love having a plan. I love having things to look forward to. I love having things to count on and to rely on. I love knowing what is expected of me and what I can look forward to. And so when life is unknown, I get afraid. I don't like not being in control of my own life. And it's hard for me to go anywhere when I feel like I don't know what I'm doing and what is next. And so the title of my message this morning is Jump, Then Fall. Not only because that is a Taylor Swift song title, it's also another piece about me. I love Taylor Swift. But I want to talk to you about what our fear of falling can do to others, what it can do to ourselves, and what it can do to God. And we're going to look at this by looking at Sarah's story in Genesis. Okay. So one of my favorite professors, Libby Backfish, always says that context is king, queen, or monarch. And so before we get into our actual main passage this morning, I'm going to give you context of what's going on in the story so that we can have a better understanding of the life of Sarah and Abraham. So we're going to trace it back to Genesis 15. We're going to read out of 18 today, but we'll start at 15. Genesis 15, we see God promise Abraham a son of his own flesh. And Abraham is kind of like, do you know who you're talking to? Me and my wife are old. We're kind of past the childbearing years. That's not going to happen. But Yahweh says no, or God says, no, I will give you a son of your own flesh. And then in Genesis 16, Sarah has also heard this news. And so I think she thinks to herself, okay, that's not going to happen through me. So I'm going to take control of this situation, God. Get out of the driver's seat. I'm taking control. That must mean that my husband needs to take my Egyptian servant, Hagar, to be his wife. And then she'll give birth to a son. And that must be what God means. It can't be through me. That's not possible. I'm not in control of the situation, so I need to take control. So Sarah tries to take control and brings Hagar, who was never supposed to be in this equation, into the equation, and she ultimately gives birth to a son named Ishmael. Now, Sarah gets really jealous of Hagar being able to conceive when Sarah hadn't been for so long, and Abraham kind of gives her permission to treat her poorly, and that leads Hagar to flee this household, go into the wilderness, but because God is so good, God pursues her and sees her. Hagar actually refers to him as the one who sees me, and Ishmael is born. And then in Genesis 17, God promises again that Abraham will have a son of his own flesh, and he says, with your wife, Sarah. With your wife, if I haven't made it clear enough in the past, it's with your wife, Sarah. And Abraham laughs. He's like, okay, good one. Yeah, that's funny. Do you know how old she is? Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Do you know how long we've been trying for that? That won't happen. Yeah, okay, God, okay. So that brings us to Genesis 18. Genesis 18, we're gonna read verses 1 through 15 this morning, okay? So the Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, if I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat so that you can be refreshed and then go on your way now that you have come to your servant. Very well, they answered, do as you say. So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. Quick, he said, get 3 seahs of the finest flour and knead it and bake some bread. Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice, tender calf and gave it to a servant who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. Where is your wife, Sarah? They asked. There in the tent, he said. Then one of them said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, now will I have this pleasure? Then the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh? Will I really have a child now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, I didn't laugh. But he said, yeah, you did laugh. Which is really funny. Totally called out. So if you're tracking with me here, God at this point in the story had already revealed to Abraham and Sarah a couple different times that he was going to have a son. A couple different times. And now he is revealing himself to Abraham in the form of 3 visitors. Now the text doesn't specifically say that these visitors were angels or that they were God himself, maybe a mixture of both, but the divinity and the holiness of their nature can be applied. And so if we're assuming that Abraham and Sarah are having a miraculous and divine encounter, then why would Sarah laugh at the idea of having a child? She was literally face to face with God himself. He was right in her face. He was in Abraham's face and saying, next year, your wife will have a child. And she thought, yeah, okay. Okay, sure. She had an encounter with God, and yet she still doubted his ability to provide the impossible. I think she did this because she had been hurt and chose to avoid. All of the women in her circle and in her town had probably had 1, 2, multiple kids at this point. And for women, especially in this time period, having a child was your whole identity, was your whole purpose in society. And so the fact that she had been hurt over and over and over and over again and felt like God was promising her and he wasn't coming through over and over and over again. She was sitting for years being hurt. And so she was so hurt that God literally was right in front of her face and she could not see the promise that he had for her. She said, not going to do that again. I'm going to avoid it. Falling hurts, so I'm not going to trust it. I think we do that too. I definitely do that. I do that. I'm afraid of not being in control of my life so much that when I feel like God tells me something or he has something good for me, I think, that's not going to happen. Sure, it'll happen for that person, but it won't happen for me. Nothing good ever happens for me. I've been hurt over and over and over again. I'm not doing that again. I'm going to choose to avoid it. How often do we see time and time again God's faithfulness, and yet we are still apprehensive to trust him? Even if it's been difficult or challenging for you to actually hear the voice of God in your life, this is why I wanted to do Encounter Chapel this year, because God and his faithfulness is all over your life. He's not only in chapel, he's not only in worship, he's not only in church, but he's in your conversations with your friends. He's in the clouds in the sky when you look up on a clear day. He is all over your life, and yet we still doubt that he is in control. We doubt that he can do the things that are impossible for us. If it's not in our control, then we can't trust it. It's not true. It's almost laughable. So I have had the privilege all year of being morning chapel coordinator and working for campus ministries, but my time here as a student, I've served in a couple different student leadership roles. I worked on the Joe team as a Discover Ambassador a couple years ago, and then last year, I was an RA in the Village. That was super fun. And yeah, woo. Yeah, Yana. Okay, so I was an RA in the Village last year. And at the beginning of spring semester, right before it started, my team and we took a retreat together. And so this retreat was full of doing like team bonding activities. And if you've been on any team of some sorts, I'm sure you're familiar with team bonding activities. And so the one that we were doing required 2 people to be blindfolded, and one person was giving instructions to the 2 blindfolded people on how to navigate through like a landmine maze. Yeah, I'm kind of familiar with this before. Yeah. And so I was one of the people who was blindfolded, and so my other friend Emily was. And so we were supposed to be listening to the person who was giving us instructions in order to know what to avoid, in order to know not to go near certain things. And if we did, we would have to start all over. I'm also kind of competitive, and so we were competing against some of my other team members, and so I was already like, oh my gosh, I want to win. Okay, it was chaotic. I was already a little bit frustrated that I wasn't the one who was giving the instructions. I was like, dang it, okay, I can do this. And it was so hard for me to hear the person who was giving me instructions because all the other people on my team were giving the same instructions or different ones. And so I was getting frustrated and I didn't know what to do and I wanted to take control. And it was hard for me to trust the person who knew better than I did. And so I thought, okay, screw it. I'm just going to step out and do something on my own because this isn't working for me. And I did that. And then this happened. It's funny now. It's really funny now. Okay, that's me on top there. My friend Emily, poor Emily, is on the bottom. Just getting absolutely suffocated. Clara, right there, was the sweet one giving us the instructions. She's like, oh, man, okay, these 2. And so because I took a step out on my own, and I wasn't trusting that Clara knew better than I did, I ruined it for the both of us. And we fell, and then we had to start all over. And I was like, dang it, now we're really not going to win. I couldn't trust the person who could see the path, and I thought that I knew better. My fear of not being in control, my fear of falling made everything worse. I told you a little bit earlier on that we were going to explore what our fear of falling can do to ourselves, what it can do to others, and what it can do to God. And just like in that picture, my fear of falling not only hurt myself, but it hurt my partner, Emily. It hurt others, but it didn't hurt Clara. It didn't hurt the one who knew better. It didn't hurt the one who was directing our path. And the same is true for this story. Hagar is used as a scapegoat. Hagar is used as a reason for Sarah to try to take control of her own situation. She couldn't trust that God was going to do what he said he was going to do, and so she thought, I need to do this on my own. Her fear of falling hurt others. Sarah also couldn't enjoy what God had promised to her. She couldn't enjoy a divine encounter with her Lord, a divine encounter with these 3 visitors, because her fear of falling hurt herself. It hurt herself. But even after all of this, Sarah's son Isaac was still born, and God's words did not come back void. He made good out of the mess and the doubts that he had created, because her fear of falling and ours, our fear of falling, cannot hurt the will of God. See, most of our warning you're going to get hurt triggers are good. Like, don't put your hand on the hot stove or you're going to burn your fingers off. That's a good trigger, right? But we bring that mentality into our spiritual life as well. We bring that fearful, cautious mentality into our relationship with God and think, okay, I'm not going near the stove at all. I'm just not going to cook. I'm not going near the stove at all because I know I'm going to get hurt. I know I'm going to hurt my hand. I know my fingers are going to burn off, so I'm not going to do that. I can't trust that. I'm not telling you to live a naively fearless life. Like, yes, it is good. Do not put your hand on the stove. I'm not telling you to live a naively fearless life where you just do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it, but I am telling you to jump and then fall and to get back up. Get back up. Gain your sense of fearlessness back. Just like when you were a young child and you fell face first, you stood back up. You can be resilient like this. It is okay to fail. It is okay to not do the right thing. It is okay to doubt. It is okay to fear. It is okay to be angry. But that doesn't mean that God's plans for your life are not still good and are not still happening. Because our fear and our doubt and our anger and our lack of control doesn't mean that God is also those things. Our humanity does not stand in the way of his divinity. Jump and then fall and then get back up. And you might be thinking, okay, how do I get back up? I've been laying on this floor forever. I've been down forever. It feels like the waves of life just keep hitting me over and over and over again. I can't get back up. How would I even begin to do that? You do that by giving your doubt, giving your fear, giving your anger, and giving your lament to God. Expressing the fullness of your human emotions in order to heal and move forward. A little bit earlier this semester, I read to you Psalm 13, but I want to read it to you again. Psalm 13 says, "How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me, Lord, and answer, my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me." There isn't rejoicing in our fall. God is not an absent-minded, divine creature up in heaven being like, sucks for you. That happened again. Yikes. Ooh, good luck with that one. He's not absent. He doesn't rejoice when we fall. Doesn't make us fall down. Doesn't make bad things happen to us. But there is rejoicing when we say, okay, I'm not in control, but I'm going to trust the one who has always been in control, knowing that just because I don't know what is coming next doesn't mean that I need to be afraid of stepping out and moving forward. Our doubts can create mess in our world and in the worlds of others, but they never tear holes in God's plans. I hate not being in control. I really do, but if I had been in control of anything in my life up until this point, then it would have been a mess. It would have been a mess. And I can celebrate the fact that I have a God who is consistent, who is faithful, who is loving, who is omnipresent, who is powerful, who knows me, who has seen the beginning and the end of my life. I can trust him and know that he has good plans for me and that I don't have to be in control. I don't have to be afraid of the unknown. I don't have to be afraid to fall. I don't have to be afraid to be human. I don't have to be afraid to lament. I can just be Hannah and trust that God sees me and knows me and loves me and has good plans for me. And that's not just true for me, it's true for every single person in this room this morning. If we put our trust in that God, in that loving, omnipresent, powerful God, then he will continue to show us grace and remind us not to fear the fall. We all need to be a little less hesitant to jump when we're terrified to fall. Following Jesus and his word doesn't guarantee us that we won't make mistakes or that life won't be hard or that we won't lose our footing. But our humanity doesn't knock God off of his throne. His plans are still intact, even if you aren't. So live fearlessly. Jump and fall and get back up so that you can go anywhere. I'm going to ask the worship team to come back up this morning, and we're all going to do something together. I want everyone to close your eyes, and I want you to put your palms face up, like this, palms face up. This is a symbol of not only of us letting go of what we are clutching onto, but also being open and willing to receive what God has for us. And so, I want you to think this morning about something in your life that's making you afraid, something in your life that is holding you back, something in your life that you haven't given to God because you can't let go of control. It's hard for you to let go of control of that one thing because you think if you do that, then it won't go well. You can't trust anyone else with this, so you've been holding on to it. I want to encourage you this morning to let go of it. Let go of control. You've never been in control of anything. God has always been in control of your life, and he has destined you to be exactly where you are right now. So let go of control. Let go of your fear of falling, because it's only hurting you, and it might be hurting other people around you, but it's not hurting God's plans for your life. So let go. And when you have that thing in your mind that you know you need to let go of, I want you to quietly in your heart repeat this prayer to yourself and take big, deep breaths of peace and joy and breathe out anger and fear. So when you have that thing, just repeat this prayer to yourself. God, thank you. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for being good to me when life isn't good. God, I give you my fear. I give you my doubt. I give you my anger. I leave it at your feet. I go into this day and into this next week knowing that you are in control. I don't need to be in control of anything. And all I need to do is trust that you look out for me and that your plans for me are good. I'm sorry if I've made a mess. I'm sorry if I've let my doubt or my fear hinder my relationship with you. God, I promise to lament well, to lament like they do in the Psalms, to express the fullness of my humanity, to be honest about where I'm at and who I am, and to know that you love me and you cherish me and you uplift me. God, thank you for seeing me. Thank you for putting me in this seat this morning. And thank you for loving me every day. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So as I said earlier, it's my goal for you to leave this morning feeling a little bit more encouraged than you did when you walked in. So don't take your doubt or your fear out of this room. Leave it here. And if it comes back, read Psalms 13. If it comes back, lament and feel it and jump, fall, and stand back up. Amen.